And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Right, a front coming across the Bering Sea, pushing some IFR here into the southwest coast, down across the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR for the remainder of the Aleutians. Good VFR in the interior here, but Brooks Range, marginal VFR with IFR for the North Slope and Arctic coast. Marginal VFR from Yakutat all the way down to Dixon Entrance, and mostly marginal there for Kodiak Island. In the afternoon, IFR here right along the southwest coast and just south of Nunivak Island into about the Pribilofs. VFR, interior Alaska. Still some IFR there for the central Arctic coast on down into the central North Slope, but improving VFR for the Brooks Range. And marginal VFR, northern southeast coast, probably VFR up toward the passes, VFR southern panhandle. Out to the west, next batch IFR pushing into the far western Aleutians with the next system. And that edges east-northeastward for the day on Sunday, or by Sunday morning anyway, almost to Adak. Otherwise, Bering Sea marginal VFR with some scattered IFR over the northern portions into western Norton Sound. IFR, North Slope Arctic coast. Brooks Range southward here into the interior. VFR, marginal VFR here across southern Alaska, Cook Inlet, Mananuska, Susitna Valley, especially the Kenai Peninsula and the North Gulf Coast, and some IFR here over the northern panhandle. And for the afternoon Sunday, a little bit of improvement down here over the southern southeast coast, otherwise marginal VFR up to the north there. Looks like some IFR in Glacier Bay, but marginal VFR, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, into the Kenai Peninsula. Mostly VFR for Cook Inlet and the Susitna Valley and the northern Copper River Basin, as well as interior Alaska right up to the Brooks Range, but the North Slope and the Arctic coast, marginal VFR with some areas of IFR thrown in. Marginal VFR here from Norton Sound right along the southwest coast into Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula. And IFR with storminess there over the western Bering Sea all the way to Atka Island. And for passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, both hopefully VFR tomorrow. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR throughout the day. Rainy, optimistically calling it VFR there. And windy VFR, same forecast for Isabel, VFR. VFR for Mentasta and Tanita, VFR. Marginal for Portage and VFR for Chilkoot and White. And for the freezing levels, 6,000 feet here over the eastern interior, 2,000 feet all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast, and then 2,000 feet here across the Panhandle. And out to the west, we've got about 2,000 to 4,000 feet there along the Aleutian chain. And from there, we'll go to the icing graphic. Next front here, pushing some moderate rime icing in toward the western and central Aleutians with lighter amounts in toward Atka Island later in the day. Another band of moisture here producing possible considerable moderate icing as well from Kodiak Island into southern Cook Inlet. Bristol Bay back across the southwest interior there, Nunivak Island. And taking a look at the jet stream. Cutting across the eastern Aleutians here and the western Alaska Peninsula, about 120 knots there. Otherwise, down off the chart everywhere else here with kind of a meandering, mixed up flow over mainland Alaska. And for 9,000 feet, westerly 70 knots south of the area here, but coming back around from the southeast at about 45 knots. Southern Cook Inlet into the western Alaska Range, and then becoming east-southeast 40 knots over the Yukon Delta. And north-northwest 40 to 45 knots blowing down across the eastern Aleutians. 3,000 foot wind flow, low pressure here, so westerly winds 35 knots Alaska Peninsula, southeast up to 55 knots there in a small area across Kamishak Bay into the Kuskokwim Valley, and pretty light over interior Alaska, and even lighter and more variable over the southeast coast and then the Gulf. Turbulence-wise, smooth for the southeast coast and much of interior Alaska with the storminess here, considerable moderate turbulence possible for Cape Newnam, Togiak, Dillingham into King Salmon, maybe the southern Kuskokwim Valley, Aleutian Range, Alaska Peninsula, all the way out to almost Atka Island, throw in Kodiak Island there, and Kachamak Bay as well, and possibly the western Aleutians.